Yeah, so this is the Total Warhammer 40k. Armies and customizations are way more complex, this guy says. Our Arekkz gaming. Now, here's my problem with the new game that I have right out of the gate is that there's what, 5 factions in it to start with, and there's so many factions in Warhammer that what Creative Assembly is going to do, which is what they always do, is they're going to release DLCs one by one with each faction costing like $15 a piece, and they're going to nickel and dime us to death. I'm not going to get my hopes up, but it'll be nice if it's great. True. And I'm definitely, I mean, I say these things, 100% buying this game. 100% buying this game.
With all of the recent awesome reveals for Total War Warhammer 40k, it's clear
They saw Paradox and was like, takes notes. Yeah, except with Paradox, at least with their games, they have the subscription now, where they're like, yeah, we may have like $500 worth of DLC, but instead you could pay us $5 a month to just have access to all of them. And then when you're done playing, you just cancel the sub. Like, I mean, that's less egregious to me. At least you have both options.
they're making some huge changes to how armies work, even down to the individual soldiers within a unit, and now we've got a much better idea of just how different these systems are going to be. Individual squads aren't necessarily made up of the same soldiers carrying the same equipment. You can have different weapons, specialists within the same unit. Soldiers can automatically choose the right equipment depending on what they're fighting.
Oh, they can automatically choose. I was gonna say, this all just sounds like what Total War Warhammer has had for a while, because you can mix and match units the whole time. So
And even character units will be handled differently. And this isn't even touching on visual customization. There's also altered mechanics for strategic reserves, reinforcements coming from orbit via drop pods and more.
yeah, true. But better yet, sell us the entire game for a 50 quid flat fee. Yes, I think that's quid is what you're saying. Euro, I don't know. Like a good old days. Yeah, for us 60, but same difference. Like, yeah, give us the game, give us the actual full game for a set price. When what was it? Age of Empires 2 came out, there was like 20 different factions in it, and then they released some like expansion packs that added a few more. That I'm cool with, but give us a good amount first. It's like the new Street Fighter that gave us like 12 characters, and 8 of them were new characters that replaced good characters that we all cared about, and guess what they did? Oh, you'll never guess. They sold us back the characters that were in all the old games for a fee, of course. Yeah, in the old days, the expansion packs were half the price of the game, but the same level of content. True, whole new campaigns to go with the characters. Now, with it, like, for example, the Creative Assembly ones, the new characters that come with it, it's like $30 for a pack of 3 leaders or whatever. And when you get those 3 leaders, there's no new storyline. There's no new campaign to play through. It's just you put them into the big open campaign, like with all the rest of them, which that's my favorite part of the game. But if you're going to sell an expansion, make an expansion.
So while we did previously on the channel look at how the ranged combat and bullet...
They act like games have gotten more expensive without selling more copies. They act like, well, yeah, games are so much more expensive to make now. They're so much more expensive to make now. And it's like, yeah, but you make like 100x the amount of money you were making whenever they cost 50 times less. So what are we doing here? Like, I don't buy it, I love Total War. I own everything they ever did up to a point, but I've given up now. And that's the other thing, is they keep dumbing it down with every installment. I'll say the best one to me, mechanic-wise, is Total War Shogun 2. Because it's got the little cutscenes with when your ninjas do stuff. It's got your little extra stuff that your armies can do. And the fact that your units can go off without a leader, or they can have a leader, multiple leaders in an army. Bigger armies and all this. These things are all really cool that they did. And the subsequent games started taking that out piece by piece by piece. The problem is that, of course, Warhammer, Total War, Warhammer 3, just has all the cool fantasy factions and everything. So, definitely more fun just because of that. But if they had the mechanics of Shogun in a game like Total Warhammer, oh man, I probably never, ever stop playing it. The added diplomacy, the added little extra things, the cutscenes that happen when your ninja fails or succeeds, like, Just the little tiny touches that add so much to the game.
The simulation itself works.
The fact that you can tell somebody that you want to trade, like, say you're playing with a friend and they're short on gold, and instead of trading them 1,000 gold every single turn, oh, diplomacy tab, here's another 1,000 gold. Instead of doing that, what you do in Shogun is you just say, for 10 turns, I'm going to give them 1,000 gold per turn. And then it just does it. Things like this, you know, things that were in-depth, but not too in-depth, like with Total War Medieval 2, where amazing game, but like the princes and princesses and the taxman and all this other stuff added in, it was a little too complex for a war game, I will say. Still really fun, just a little tad too complex, whereas I feel like Shogun 2 really boiled it down and dialed into the perfect mix of mechanics.
Look at the armies, the units, and the soldiers. One of the biggest changes here to the usual Total War unit structure is that single units aren't necessarily made up of the same dozens of soldiers anymore.
Yeah.
Creative Assembly, the developers, have showed off this new system with a Kasrkin unit. This belongs.
That's actually cool. So one unit can be multiple different people? No, wait. I hate that, actually. Actually, I think that that's too in-depth in the wrong direction, now that I think about it. We already have 20 units on a squad. Looks like that actually goes up to 40. That's crazy. So 40 units on a squad. I really don't need to also be min-maxing and mixing and matching my units inside of a unit. I don't know. That feels like it's just a little too much in the wrong direction. Like they're going for the whole upgrading and customizing your army. I just hope that it goes more into the actual campaign map and stuff. Because the place that Total War has been lacking for many entries is actually the campaign map. The battles have always been tight. The battles are always good. It's the campaign map that has really been suffering.
Belongs to the Astra Militarum or Imperial Guard, depending on how much of an OG you are, and this worked as a perfect example, because it's actually one of the most customizable units out of most of the factions. Here, one squad of Kasrkin can contain several different types of soldiers, each with their own equipment and purpose within that same unit. Within
like
one
that.
unit, you have your regular Kasrkin, but you also have things like Voxcasters, sergeants, and specialists mixed in within the same unit. And when you dig into the unit card, you can actually see just how many soldiers are carrying.
I just don't like that. I think that that's too much. What's wrong with just having a unit of a unit of Ogren, and then a unit of Ogren who are melee Ogren instead of bolter Ogren, and then, you know, maybe a Space Marine chainsword specialized versus a Space Marine lasgun specialized. Like, I don't really need to have it to where I can set each Space Marine inside of a single unit with what gun they have. It can just be like a 10-man, 20-man, 100-man unit, whatever, with their weapons.
Each different type of weapon and their individual stats. Plus, I believe this customization is done out on the grand campaign map with unit production.
I bet my buddy would probably, like a giant Total War fan, I bet he might disagree with me there, but that's my take on it. That's too much in the wrong direction.
In the squad that they previewed, the regular Kasrkin and Voxcaster units had hotshot lasguns with rapid fire. Meanwhile,
also, what's with the Kasrkins getting all this love and stuff? Like, where the hell the Kriegsmen, dude, the Kriegsguard or whatever, the Kriegsmarine? Where are my Space Marines at? Where are my Orc boys, dude? Where are my Orc boys? Where's the Where is it, dude?
Lists were equipped with plasma guns.
Where's Chaos?
And the sergeants had their own weapons like chainsaws. All of these weapons together will contribute towards what that one individual squad is actually good at fighting against. This means that you can have several of the same type of unit, like Kasrkin, but all kitted out differently for different roles in a battle.
Yeah, and you could do this before, except you didn't have to do it with individual people on an individual level. You could just pick, all right, this is my Goblin Archers, and these are my Goblin Squig Riders. The Goblin Archers could still fight in melee, they're just less effective at it. You know, you could still do that in the old game. You just didn't have to min-max to the level of each specific soldier.
So one could be really good against light armor, another against medium, and another geared more towards those heavily armored targets. This is actually pretty cool because there's also the new sentry mode that we touched on previously. This is where you can give individual units specific targets.
See, because here's my other thing, is they're putting all this work into this system, which means that other systems are missing that work. Other systems are not getting the work that that's getting because they only have so many resources.
Once they get in range. This means you can get really tactical and specific with your army and each individual unit's role. On this point, rather than trying to explain every weapon and armor interaction through a massive collection of stats, and believe me, there's a lot, Creative Assembly instead have grouped targets together into one of 3 categories, which we previously just mentioned.
That battle looks really good, though.
Split between light, medium, and heavy units. So when you quickly look at a unit and its stats, you can kind of see what will be best to deal with it based on those categories. The Kasrkin they showed were particularly strong against medium targets, and Creative Assembly have specifically said that the Space Marines are the sort of enemy that you would want to point them towards, given that they're also medium armored units.
What?
But because this squad...
What? Wait. The Space Marines are medium armor units, so I'm guessing that, like, a heavy armor unit is like a full-on tank or a dreadnought or something like that? If the Space Marines are medium.
Different weapons and specialists, it still has some ability to deal with both light and heavy targets too, meaning you can spec things to be all-rounders.
I guess that does make sense.
Devs did describe the customization as being able to tune roughly about 20% towards a
Orc
particular
boys!
This is interesting because you can't completely change what a unit is more or less supposed to do, but it will let you spec into specific things, like being a bit better against armor or light enemies and so on.
Like I said, again, you could do that previously, you just didn't have to min-max this deep.
Also, soldiers can actually have multiple weapons in some cases, and the new UI system in the game will let...
Again, they could do that before, like with the example of the archers. The archers could fight with their archery, and then you could switch them to melee mode, and then they would attack with their sword or whatever they have on them, depending on what faction they're from.
Them switch between the weapons that they're carrying, depending on what they're fighting. For example, against a normal infantry squad...
See, my question is, do they do this automatically? Because my big problem with Total War Warhammer 3 is... what a name, by the way. Just call it Total Warhammer. What are we doing here? Are you guys afraid, Creative Assembly, that we won't know that it's a different thing than Total War? Is that what it is? Or is it that the guys who make Warhammer are so full of themselves that you have to have Warhammer be its own separate name? It's got to be one of those two things, and either way, it's stupid. Just call it Total Warhammer. Come on. Like, what the fuck? What are we doing here?
Squad might happily fire them.
Oh yeah, but sorry. My problem is, though, with Total Warhammer 3 is that whenever, like, say, an archer unit gets attacked by a dragon or whatever, gets attacked by somebody, cavalry, instead of pulling out their melee units, they'll just start to run away, and then they'll hit the edge of the map, and they'll literally fully run away. That's what they automatically do, unless you manually switch them to melee mode. I would really like to see that they're ranged from a range, and then if someone runs up on attacks them, that the automatic thing is for them to fight back, and then you can tell them to retreat instead. That's how I think it should be, just a flip-flop of the mechanics of what happens automatically.
Main gun away. Or perhaps they'll throw some frag grenades once in range. But when targeting something a bit more heavily armored,
that's cool if they'll do it automatically.
Instead use their anti-armor equipment that they have. So they might throw frag grenades instead, via plasma or melters if they have them.
That's super sick,
also,
I love that.
if you have flamers, once a squad
as long as they do it on their own and you don't have to switch between them all the time, I do love that mechanic.
Gets within range to an enemy sitting in cover, that squad will automatically start dousing that enemy in flames as well. This system sounds really cool, to be honest, but do note, you won't manually need to tell every soldier which weapon to pull out. They will do this automatically based on the target, the range of the weapon, and what equipment you customize them with. Personally, I love this sheer level of customization and range in specializing units, even if they're the same type of unit within your army. It's a little reminiscent of how some factions work in the tabletop 40k game. Then you have the unique character units, and they take this idea even further with some of these, because a lot of them won't actually be standalone characters. Characters will work slightly differently in Total War Warhammer 40k compared to other Total War games.
You're not about to tell me that I can't pull out a Rabute Gilliman.
Every character in this one is necessarily going to be a powerhouse running around and able to wreak havoc on their own. Creative Assembly used a Commissar as their main example here. They said you'll be able to customize the composition and equipment of these bodyguard units throughout your campaign, and you may start with one setup and then gradually change the soldiers and weapons that they carry based on your army's needs. But do note, this doesn't mean single entity characters are disappearing completely like how Lords work in previous Total War games. The devs have said that there are still single entities where it makes sense, particularly for characters powerful enough to fight on their own, but others, like a commissar, will be integrated into a squad around them.
So it's like in Warhammer where you'll still have lords, but the heroes will have their own little unit with them. I mean, that could be a good change, especially for Warhammer 40k, where everything's a little more ranged and stuff. There's a lot more gunfire happening. I could be down with that.
The cool thing is, though, these bodyguard units will have custom individuals within that unit that can actually impact abilities and your gear. One example they gave is a Psyker that can be embedded within a squad, which will then give that unit access to the Psyker's ability. But that individual Psyker will be the thing that gives you access to that Psyker ability, and he is just going to be another soldier in the unit. So if that Psyker gets killed, the ability that he provides will then disappear with him, and the UI will update to show that.
Okay, I'm starting to like this system a little more. Maybe I was a little too harsh on the customization system, because that's sick as hell. That adds so much depth to the battles, actually. I was too hard on it. Halfway through, I think I've changed my opinion. The customization is pretty sick.
This means things could get pretty nuts in a massive battle, because two casualties within one squad don't necessarily mean the same level of loss. Losing a guardsman is one thing, but losing a specialist within that squad is another, potentially meaning you've lost an important weapon or even an ability, like if the Psyker went down. Creative Assembly are aware of this risk though, and said they are looking into if we'll be able to influence where specialists sit within squad formations to better protect them. So for example...
Ooh, I didn't think about that. You should definitely be able to do that, like put a Psyker behind a bunch of guardsmen, or like circled in.
If you could choose where to put a sergeant, a Psyker, or a Voxcaster within a unit, you might choose to put them in the middle back of the formation where they'll hopefully be safe. But the devs said this is something they're still working out, so we just don't know if that's going to be possible yet. But once you zoom out from the individual soldiers and squad...
Wait, still working out? Isn't this game coming out this year? Am I mistaken about that? Isn't this game coming out this year? How are they still working that out?
The scale of these battles quickly gets pretty nuts, and that's where things like reserves, drop pods, and more come in.
Fuck, dude, it's gonna get delayed.
In normal Total War games, you can still bolster your army with extra units from a nearby force, and in this case, it will be your orbiting fleet or stations nearby. The Space Marines are probably the easiest example here that Creative Assembly gave during the stream. For example, you could have additional Space Marines waiting in your fleet in orbit, and then bring those reinforcements onto the battlefield in things like drop pods, and even Thunderhawks that they did call out, and that's going to be pretty cool. The Astra Militarum, however, handle this differently. Their reinforcements are closer to more traditional Total War games, with the troops coming in from the edge of the map and slowly moving.
It is cool that they put in the Astra Militarum and the Space Marines. My question is, like, we've got two separate human factions, Orcs, Eldar, and gosh, I can't even remember what the fifth one is. But we've got 5 factions, and 2 of them are humans. Where I don't think we have the Necrons. I don't think we have the... Gosh, I just can't remember their names right now. I'm so bad at names sometimes when I'm trying to talk. The spooky alien guys that eat everything. We don't have those, I'm pretty sure. We don't have Chaos. Unless it's like a different mechanic in the game where your guys can fall to Chaos. But from what I understand, we don't have Chaos.
Moving forwards. This is kind of cool though, because it gives each faction different identities and tactics and how they fight once boots are on the ground. I actually think the Eldari could get some really cool warp shenanigans here that I can't wait to see. But another thing to mention is that you can also choose which units to keep in reserve yourself. During deployment, you don't have to deploy every unit in your army. You could instead opt for some of them to go back into reserves.
That's cool.
I expect this would work really well for things that can teleport, drop pod in, or flank an enemy once the battle's started, but for the Astra Militarum that need a strong front line to dig into, I'm not really sure of the benefit for them. The devs have also talked about battles potentially supporting around 40 individual units at one time.
That's cool.
Which is pretty massive.
Yeah, I'm seeing the 19 out of 40 down there, and seeing how there's 19 cards right there. which definitely leads me to believe that they've upped the cap from 20 units to 40 units. That's
considering
sick.
units can have a lot of soldiers in them. They have said this is possible with reserves and specific setups, although it will be very hard to do with factions like the Space Marines, but they did say it's possible. A lot of this does connect back to the campaign map as well, with your fleet and the planets under your control, and we haven't seen too much of that yet. But battlefield support and stratagems are also a huge thing, and this is where we see some of that epic 40k firepower come in. We've already seen things like the Valkyrie airstrikes and orbital bombardments in previous gameplay, but the livestream gave us a better explanation of how some of these work and a cool manual
I mean, I always just assumed they'd work like the abilities that you can pop off in Warhammer, the fantasy version, where you could just press the ability on the side, hit it, and it has like a cooldown or a certain amount. They use the Winds of Magic in Warhammer 3, but we'll see how they balance it. Probably be like an amount of
Basically,
ammunition.
Depending on the forces you bring in, you will have different support options, like active abilities that you can use in a fight.
Yeah.
Most of the examples we have are for the Astra Militarum. You've got the Death Strike God Spear, which is basically a big area that you designate to drop a huge missile strike that's basically like a mini nuke. You have the Valkyrie Strike, where you can choose...
I really hope they go with a more diverse set of locations, though. I really don't want to see every single thing just look like a blown-out green and brown. I really am hoping for more than just that, because a lot of Warhammer games fall into the trap of putting me literally to sleep every time I play them because of the color palette. Warhammer Fantasy doesn't really have this problem, but Warhammer 40k games, they're always either brown, green, or gray. And you don't really get any other colors besides for that.
The path of the attack, and then an airstrike will strafe in and bomb the target. But then you have the Orbital Lance Strike. This is probably the most spectacular one we've seen. But one cool new detail here that we didn't know before is that you don't just have to fire and forget it. You have the ability to control this directly. With the Lance Strike, the devs showed that if you click and hold it, once it fires, you can steer the beam around the battlefield yourself, dragging it or keeping it on enemies that you want it to target.
I like that.
Or if you have other micro to worry about, you can just click it and it will go and do its thing. I really love this choice because if you think back to Total War Warhammer 1, 2, or 3, whiffing a big spell was pretty rough.
Yeah,
also,
true.
The Imperial Guard have another system that ties into how...
Although, for the balance of multiplayer, that might make it a little bit more difficult in not a great way. I would rather have my heroes and my units doing damage directly than a bunch of abilities to activate. This is why there's some classes like the elves that I just don't play, is because I don't want to have to pop off 20 abilities. I want to be able to just fight. I like playing the orcs and the dwarves because I can just run in and hit stuff.
Their army fights, with officers being able to issue orders across the battlefield through Vox casters. You see the Astra Militarum have their own regimental orders system. It kind of plays into how they work on tabletop, but the orders don't apply to your whole army. They need to be communicated across the battlefield through these Vox casters. It's kind of like a communication network in order to buff your units. So again, this plays into that individual unit customization, where you will need to pay close attention to where your Vox casters are in relation to your overall army formation. We haven't seen enough of the Orcs or Eldari yet to know how far their faction-specific designs go, but between the Imperial Guard and the Space Marines, we're already seeing some very cool asymmetry in their playstyle. I think this livestream showed us overall how much more depth there is to an army in Total War Warhammer 40k compared to previous Total War games.
See, I want to know though, can I take a Space Marine unit and just arm them all with chain swords and shit like that, and just have them charge in and be a death ball? Like, basically no guns in my army. Just have a giant death ball of Space Marines or a giant wog of orcs, dude, because that's what I want. Fuck the guns, fuck the special abilities. Let me paint my Space Marines whatever color I want to paint them, and put them in battle and smash them together like two action figures.
Between everything we've covered here and all of the ranged combat systems in our other video, I think we've got a much better idea of what actually playing the game is going to look like.
Also, Warhammer 3 has like 400 factions that spawn when the game starts. I'm wondering how many minor factions this will have.
And I am all here for it. If Creative Assembly can make each faction feel as mechanically different as they're sort of showing here with the Guard and Space Marines, I think this could be a massive win for 40k fans, Total War fans, and strategy game fans in general. I can't wait to get hands-on.
I don't...
There's no release date yet, so we expect it to be sometime next year.
Okay.
We do know there's some more exciting...
I thought that they had talked... Maybe I'm thinking about the end times. The end times that Warhammer 3 is supposed to release this year.
Stuff being revealed on the horizon, so make sure you're locked in down below and we'll be back to update you as and when we get
I don't know, that was a fine video. It feels like he was sponsored by them probably, but I will say I don't think this is going to be a massive win for strategy gamers just because of the monetization that's for sure going to happen. It's going to be fun. I've no doubt about that. It's going to be fun. I'm definitely going to pick it up and be addicted to it for a while. But with the lack of diversity in units, it's going to be one of those games where I probably play it for a little while, put it down and play Warhammer 3 again for a minute, and then, you know, after they've added new factions and stuff over the course of like a year or 2 years, I'll come back and spend $200 to actually play the real game. Or more like they'll release another game, Warhammer 40k 2, and you'll have to buy this one and that one so that you can play the super special secret mode. That's what I think is going to happen.